Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf and Gavin Shaw here, and we have one of our favorite recurring guests on today. He is live on site at the NBA Draft Combine, so you're not going to get too much better insight than from this guy, the New York Post's Marc Berman. Gavin, what are we getting into in this episode?
Oh, man. Berman drops a lot of nuggets in this one. We are talking if the Knicks will trade up in the NBA draft. Could the Knicks trade out of the draft entirely? Would Julius Randle be involved in either or both of those discussions? What free agents are the Knicks going after? Do they have a great chance at Jalen Brunson? Who will be back on the Knicks next year? It's all coming up right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. We'd like to thank today's sponsor of Locked On Knicks, Sakara Nutrition. Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food as medicine on a mission to nourish. Go to sakara.com/lockedon20 or enter code LOCKEDON20 for 20% off at checkout. And we want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. And of course, you got to make this one your first listen. Whenever Berman's on, you know some big time knowledge is about to get dropped, including some stuff that probably hasn't even hit the print presses yet. And whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, we appreciate you guys making us a part of your daily routine. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And he is Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, hustling like no other, doing like 20 games in 10 days coming up here soon. So definitely be sure to check Gavin out on the airwaves. And I'm not going to hold this up any further because this is an awesome conversation with Marc Berman, as it always is. So let's get right into it. Marc Berman of the New York Post. All right, as promised, we're welcoming in Marc Berman of the New York Post. You probably know him as at NYPost_Berman on Twitter. You might know him for his weekly Knicks newsletter for the Post, where he just wrote about the 25th anniversary of the Knicks Heat Brawl. You might know him for his breaking news today about Tim Hardaway actually being a part of the Knicks scouting staff, who was part of that brawl and once said that he really, really hated the Knicks. Or you might know him for all the fantastic articles he's been dropping over the last day and change at the Combine, including on two of our favorites that we're going to talk about in a second, Ben Mathurin and Dyson Daniels. But Marc, how are you doing? How's the Combine treating you? How's everything been? You've been a busy guy the last couple of days with the lottery and the Combine here.
Yeah, Alex and Gavin, thanks for having me on. First of all, yeah, Chicago is one of my favorite cities. The Windy City. It's a lot of people from New York for some reason don't visit Chicago on vacation because maybe they think it's too close to New York, but they should come down to Chicago. It's got to be the city is right on the lake, and it's a beautiful Lake Michigan, and just so much to do here with the food and the blues music and restaurant dish. So it's always fun to cover the Combine. It's been in Chicago for most of my I've been covering the Knicks. I just finished my 23rd season actually, and most of the time the Combine is in Chicago, and I think a lot of the executives love it and the players love it too. And the NBA did a good job in transferring the lottery from Secaucus, New Jersey. Then it went to Broadway, and then it came to Chicago, and they've combined it with the Combine. The lottery and the Combine back to back.
I got to ask quick before we get into the real questions. What's your opinion on deep dish pizza?
Is it better than New York pizza? I mean, listen, there's nothing I love more than a delicious Manhattan, cheesy, thin sliced pizza. But once a month or once every 2 months, a deep dish is fabulous. And Newsday reporter Steve Popper and I, and your own from the Fox Sports, we all went out to a deep dish place last night, and great time, great pizza, and I'm still full.
A very nuanced pizza take from Marc Berman. So Marc, we to get into the Knicks aspect of things, obviously the lotto happens the other day. The Knicks stick at pick 11, which was going to happen. We were pretty apathetic about it here, just being like, well, that's expected. But there's been some rumblings. I think Ian Begley said this like pretty much right away in his video he made right after the lottery and stuff like that, that the Knicks could maybe trade the 11th pick. So what do you think, if you were a betting man, do the Knicks make this selection? Do they look to trade it? Like, do they see themselves as a team with pressure to win next year, or are they sort of leaning into the youth? Like, what do you think the overall vibe is with the Knicks right now with a pick that's sort of, it's not a franchise changer, but it's certainly one where they could add a, potentially a project or, an instant contributor, with this 11th spot.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that night the Indiana Pacers could be a definite trade target. The Pacers still what they really want to do. They're going full rebuild. They got 2 targets that the Knicks like and Meyer, and they talked to the Pacers Turner before the deadline, and then the point guard Malcolm Brogdon, who makes a ton of money, and now they have Tyrese Halliburton. And so Pacers have the 6th pick. If they're just breaking it down, I mean, they could just add the 11th, and the Knicks could make some deal for Brogdon or Turner or both in a big package. So, yeah, the Knicks are open to anything. Tom Thibodeau probably wants to deal the pick if he could get immediate help. But 11 isn't bad. It's not in this draft. It's a deep draft. I don't think the top 5 are all that spectacular. So I think when you're 11, you might as well be 6. There's a lot of comparable players. So I think the Knicks are happy to make that pick, and they've been interviewing guys the last 2 days here in Chicago that are in their range. And there's some interesting guys like Daniels and Mathurin and Johnny Davis. I mean, there's some good players, but Thibodeau, he wants veterans. He's not a big fan of all rookies.
So this would maybe be antithetical to a win now move, but you mentioned the Pacers. Portland, a team it was reported today that potentially would like to move back. I can't help but think 2 potentially good landing spots for Julius Randle, a place to play with Damian Lillard, or in Indiana, a stretch 5 that the Knicks theoretically would have liked to have put around Randle at some point. Do you think the Knicks are open to moving Randle in a trade up in the draft? And do you think they're open to trading him in general?
They're open to trading anybody. It depends what they could get back. I mean, if they're getting back the 4th pick and it's Randle and, a big contract from Portland that makes the salaries work, possibly. I think there's thought now in the organization that Obi Toppin could be their starting power forward of the future. And, the organization was confused why Julius Randle was so, quote, uncomfortable this season. And I'm using a quote from Leon Rose in his lone interview, since September when he talked to MSG Network. He still has not spoken to the media, did not talk after the lottery drawing. Neither did Wesley. We're told by the department they will not talk here at the Combine, keeping up with their policy that they will only do media if it's NBA mandated. That's James Dolan's rule, and it's bad for the fans.
Yeah, well, so to touch on Randle again, do you think that things are kind of broken beyond repair there? Do you see a world where he ends up back with the Knicks next year? Like, is it maybe just because of a lack of options, a lack of suitors that he ends up back with the Knicks? Or do you think, is your general impression that there's still some optimism they can make it work? Or does it seem like the ship has kind of sailed at this point going into the offseason?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's sailed, and especially because he's a CAA guy, Kentucky guy. He's got a lot of allies. Leon Rose, his current agents, like Leon Rose is like best friends with Aaron Mintz. Listen, if Julius wants out and there's no indication that he definitely has to ask for a trade, he acted like he didn't want to be here. But if he has very quietly asked for a trade behind the scenes, he'll be gone. But if Julius is open to staying, and I was surprised to see him join some Knicks brass at the Dallas-Utah game. Naturally, he's from Dallas, but he didn't have to show up to a basketball game. So that made me feel a little better about his future. The Knicks brass was there in the front row, so Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson can see them. I mean, that's not tampering, but it was odd. So, the fact that Julius showed up was definitely interesting to me. He went to Italy for a vacation. Maybe he just needs time to unwind. Things snowballed. It started early in the season when he got off to a bad start, and he heard some groans and boos, and social media was, quite frankly, unfair to him that early on in the season. So I think it's repairable, but I think since Obi Toppin stepped up down the stretch, I think the Knicks realize Obi Randle tandem could be superfluous, if that's the right word. Look
No,
it up in the dictionary.
I think it is. I think it is. And I would argue that Julius Randle is not only superfluous, but maybe counterproductive at this point. All right, guys, we'll be back with Marc Berman of the New York Post, a.k.a. the bus driver, to share more rumors on what the Knicks might do at the NBA draft, which prospects they're most interested in, and other stuff coming out of the NBA Combine. But first, I got to tell you how to stop getting scammed. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scheme out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. You can use that money towards some other great Locked On products. These companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts, and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. Truebill's over 2 million users and helps save them over $100 million. Like Matthew B., who says, in a matter of seconds, I save $660 a year on my DirecTV bill, $120 on my SiriusXM bill, and $840 a year on my car insurance. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year.
One thing you don't want to cancel, though, don't cancel that Built Bar order, because Built Bars are the best protein bar out there. And I tell you what, I love brownies, but you know what I love more? I love brownie batter. It's a guilty pleasure. Sometimes I wind up eating about half the batter before I even pour the brownies in the pan. It kind of leads to some really thin batches of brownies, but it's okay. I kind of like them chewy anyway. But imagine if you could lick the brownie spatula clean and get some protein while you're doing it. That's where you get lucky here, because Built has now just introduced brownie batter puffs. You heard me right. The puff takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they are available right now at Built.com. I don't know if you guys have tried Built Puffs yet. I certainly hope so. If you value my opinion, you must have tried them by now, because I talk about them like every day. I don't know what you guys are waiting for if you haven't already, because Puffs are chocolate-covered marshmallow protein bars. That's right. Delicious flavored marshmallows covered in 100% real chocolate. And they have just 140 calories compared to a whopping 17 grams of protein and only 7 grams of sugar in these brownie batter puffs. So they're the perfect pick-me-up for any day without filling you with all the bad stuff. And they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So go to Built.com to get brownie batter puffs now. Again, go to Built.com and make sure to use promo code LOCKED15 and you can get 15% off your brownie batter puffs. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. And now we return to talk more with Marc Berman.
Circling back to the idea that the Knicks might keep this pick. Marc, you've been covering the Combine all week. You were just telling us you've been interviewing everyone. I was just checking out the fantastic piece you put out on Dyson Daniels, one of Alex's favorites, one of my favorites. What's your gauge for where the Knicks are at if they stay at number 11? Who are the top couple of people on their board right now?
Yeah, so we spoke to Dyson today at the availability, and he met with the Knicks yesterday. So he met with them Wednesday, and I don't think my story is posted as we, but he said the Knicks are a definite possibility. I mean, he got a strong read that they were interested in him a lot. So had a nice interview, talked a lot about his defense, more about his defense than his point guard abilities. But he talked about the fact that, yeah, he improved as the season went along. He was happy his coach, Hart, of the G League Ignite, wanted him with the ball. Early in the season, it was, not so comfortable, but he said he got better and better and better. Still not a great three-point shooter. but he does a lot of things at 6'8" as a point guard, a guy who could guard 3-4 positions. I mean, we're talking, and he talked so much about how, the NBA is actually turning into a defensive league where you got Boston, Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals with versatile players who switch so much. And he's one of those defensive players who could switch on 3-4 different players. And that's how Boston defended Milwaukee and beat Milwaukee. So he's excited about his NBA prospects. He thinks he could be a real impact player, not just as a ball handler and lead guard, but especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, this is just like just your own personal impressions. But did you get to see him at all in any of the scrimmages or anything like that?
I mean, again, the top 15 guys, or maybe the top, maybe even more, but yeah, they all said, like, when we asked them why you don't scrimmage, they said, why risk getting hurt?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or even playing poorly and hurting, they feel they have a good mock draft status right now. I think the guys more in the mid to late first round and second round, they want to improve themselves in the draft order. So, so I think, he did the drills on the side, and, we're in the seats. It's tough everyone's going at once. It's tough to figure out even some of the names of the shuttle lane drill that I wrote in my story that he did very well. And it's a kind of a speed drill. But, I'm talking to some scouts. We're seeing some of the pylon drills, and some of the scouts are shaking their head and say, I'm looking at this and I don't even know how that factors into being an NBA player. Like, just because he did the pylon well, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't tell me anything. These scouts are saying the NFL combine is different. It's like almost every drill matters, especially the speed drill. But yeah, we saw him do some of those drills on the side, but it's tough to make head or tails out of it.
I guess the pylon one, it shows you how well he'll do against a bad defender in the NBA, right?
Right.
How well you can get by a stationary object.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Bennedict Mathurin as well? He's a guy that you brought up, that you talked to. Did you get any impressions out of him about, you said that he had talked to the Knicks as well as Johnny Davis, which obviously those are two names that we're super into as well. I mean, this all bodes very well for all the agendas that we've wanted for this pick for the Knicks. So what kind of impressions did you get from Mathurin about, how things went with the Knicks and whether, they're looking at him pretty seriously with that pick as well, and if he'll even be in their range, quite frankly?
Yeah, I will say that a lot of the mocks have him before 11, but and especially after the NCAA tournament, he had a pretty good tournament, had a 30-point game with that poster dunk. But yeah, he was very interesting personality. He's from Montreal, Canadian. He knows Barrett. I wrote that, Barrett and Mathurin worked out in Florida together, and he got to know him a little bit. They spoke French with each other, so he would be a good fit in the locker room and be an ally with RJ. He's such an athletic player. He's more athletic than RJ. He's a better shooter than RJ. So he's very intriguing. And that's why I wonder if he'll be there at 11. He said that, playing at Arizona and Tucson it's a wild atmosphere in the arena, and he thinks the Garden would be more fun. Sounded really excited about that. Very proud to be a Canadian. Yeah, if he falls to 11, I think the Knicks aren't trading. So, that would be a nice catch if they could get him. I think he's going to be a really good pro, and he's very personable and mature, and I enjoyed talking to him today.
Marc, just being at the combine this week and being at the lottery, have you picked up any other rumors about the Knicks or just the NBA as a whole? I mean, it's such a gathering of the entire league. I assume some stuff inevitably kind of leaks out.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really where all the GMs are together. They had a GM meeting just to talk policy a couple of days, but they're all together in the gym and chatting about the possibilities of draft night. Now they have their order together, so they know where everyone is going to draft. And this is where it really starts, where, you start talking about, well, if we're at 11 and and there's no one available that we like, and we're at 18, would be willing to do this or that and add this. I mean, this is where it really starts. I know the Lakers are trying to get into the draft. I don't know what they would give the Knicks, but So listen, Leon Rose needs to make something big happen. Whether it's draft night or free agency, he needs to make something big happen. So I think he's going to try to hit a home run. Again, if there is a player he absolutely loves, he'll make the pick at 11. But he could definitely trade it in a big package. The Knicks stood pat at the deadline, decided let's be patient, let's wait for the offseason to do our thing. So and everyone could be on the move, including Julius on draft night.
All right, we'll be right back to finish up with Marc Berman of the New York Post, including some interesting Mitchell Robinson tidbits that you're not going to want to miss. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Sakara. Feeling your best starts with what you eat. Sakara helps you live a healthy, balanced lifestyle and truly enjoy it with delicious, plant-rich, transformational nutrition that builds a foundation for living in your best body. And I tell you what, Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food as medicine on a mission to nourish your body through the power of plants. Sakara gives you the tools you need to transform your life with their organic, ready-to-eat meal delivery program and functional wellness essentials. Their nutritionally designed, chef-created breakfast, lunches, and dinners are made with powerful, plant-rich ingredients, helping you boost your energy, support your digestion, curb your sugar cravings, and get your skin glowing. Plus, it's all delivered right to your door, ready to eat. So right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/lockedon20 or enter lockedon20 at checkout. So be sure to go check it out for yourself. See if maybe you could try some plant-based cheese that tastes amazing. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/lockedon20 to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/lockedon20. Maybe going the other direction, do you see a world where, and I mean, this could be pure speculation on your part if there's not anything that you've really heard about it, but do you think there's a world where the Knicks potentially look to move up in the draft? Like, say if let's say that because of the rise of Shaden Sharp and let's say maybe Keegan Murray catches somebody's eye, maybe, Jaden Ivey makes pick 6 or something like that, who seems on paper like a perfect fit for the Knicks. Do you think that there's a world where they could potentially try to move up to a pick like that and maybe even dangle the Dallas pick or one of their other young players or something like that to try to make that sort of move?
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't know that until draft night if someone falls to 5 or 6 that they love. Like if, as you said, Shaden Sharp is still there at 7 for some reason. But after his workout here in Chicago, he had, his pro day here. And, the scouts are saying, oh, yeah, he's top 5 now. But yeah, if someone they love does fall, of course, they would move up. But I feel they would trade the pick away more so than moving up. I'll be honest. I feel that they would get a Brogdon at point guard to start the season and give up 11. I think that would be a more likelier scenario than trying to move up to get Holmgren. I mean, this isn't a great draft at the very top. And so moving up, again, is a good, speaking to the lottery, I mean, there was some disappointment, but some people said, oh, they're good at 11. I mean, it's that type of draft.
I guess moving on to some free agency stuff, I'll just throw 4 names out there since we already covered Randle. Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Evan Fournier, and Mitchell Robinson. How many of those guys do you think are on the Knicks opening day next season?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Mitchell Robinson as a unrestricted free agent, a big development with Detroit that could factor into Mitchell's situation is that the Pistons dropped to number 5 and they're no longer going to be able to draft Holmgren. So they're going to have interest in Mitchell Robinson. So whether the Knicks even offer him the max they can offer him, like maybe $54 million right before free agency, maybe Mitchell thinks he'll have something from Detroit that's better. So my bet is that Mitchell wants a change of scenery also. I don't think the Knicks, because of the way he plays the center position, although it's great, in a defensive way with his shot blocking. I think he's too limited offensively for this new NBA. So I don't know if they want to spend that much money on a center when maybe Jericho Sims and Noel can do the job. Now, I think that Noel is safe if Mitchell goes. But if the Knicks need to clear cap space for a free agent, then Noel is an expiring contract. So I think that he could be gone. So listen, I think there's going to be a lot of movement, and Mitchell could be the first domino to fall.
Well, that would be a shame from a post-game availability standpoint, in addition to everything he brings on the court. The man who christened you the bus driver. I'm sure that would be a big loss for you, Mark.
I'm
Real
going to miss
quick.
him.
Yeah, I would too. Real quick, one big name before we send you off here that's been coming up in connection to the Knicks a lot is Jalen Brunson. Has been having himself a really great postseason. We all know the connections that he has to the Knicks with Leon Rose, more or less being like his godfather. For all the funny comparisons Knicks fans make about Leon Rose being the godfather, it's more or less like that to Jalen Brunson because of the relationship with his dad, Rick Brunson. What are you hearing about that whole situation? Do you think that it's an inevitability in any sort of way? Do you think that it's maybe being overblown a little bit and that Brunson is going to stick with this team that's in the Western Conference Finals right now rather than coming to the Knicks? Like, what's your read on that situation?
Well, you didn't even mention that Leon's son is his agent. Secondary agent, but still he talks to Jalen more than Aaron Mintz, the primary agent. Listen, Jalen has found a great spot in Dallas. I think this playoff run should solidify his future there. I was told a couple of weeks ago Cuban wants to re-sign him. Jalen would love to play in New York, but he also wants to get paid, and Dallas might be able to pay him more than the Knicks. And I think because they're winning and there seems to be a nice chemistry with Doncic and a good flow with Dinwiddie coming off the bench, maybe this is where Jalen wants to be. So I think the Knicks could now be a long shot. Listen, if they get swept, maybe there's a bitter taste and maybe something changes. But if I was a betting man right now, I say that he resigns with Dallas as long as they pay him a fair amount. That's all they want. Jalen's been underpaid, a second-round pick, a little more than the minimum wage, like Mitchell Robinson. And he just wants to be paid his market value. And if he gets that from Dallas, I think he'd just stay.
All right, Mark, last thing on my end. This is asking for a little bit of speculation from you. But if you had to bet a year from now, do you think Tom Thibodeau is still the coach of the New York Knicks?
I'd say no. We were joking about if he makes it till December 1st. Yeah, listen, I wrote it. I'm not going to embellish it more, but I said at least two executives at the All-Star break wanted him fired. Okay, I've written it. Maybe there were more than two. I said at least two. So I think if they get off to a bad start and December comes around and Johnny Bryan is still on the staff, we may see a change. I'm always thinking that Jay Wright is going to be an NBA coach someday. He's talked about it. If you look at his quotes in the past, he said he'd love to coach in the NBA, but I just don't want to leave Villanova. Well, guess what? He left Villanova. The NIL and the transfer portal, it's the pros anyway. Coaching college at that level is coaching professional basketball. Might as well do it in the NBA. So I think that maybe Jay Wright could be a candidate. I don't think if the Knicks get off to a bad start that Thibodeau is going to survive to the All-Star break.
Well, I guess we'll see. We'll maybe set the over-under on, 22 games for Fizdale? Maybe we'll set the over-under there, 22 games. See if Tibbs can make it that far.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, if they get off to a good start,
yeah,
that's all, everything changes. But then it's all about winning.
Earns a little bit more goodwill. Well, Mark, thanks so much for popping on with us, man. We really appreciate you taking some time out while you're so busy with everything at the Combine. You did mention before we got recording that you've got some stories in the pipeline and stuff. So I'll just lend you the floor for a second just to promote anything that you've got coming out that you want people to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to a lot of guys today. So in the next few days, we'll be rolling them out. Mathurin and Dyson and Johnny Davis and the kid from Ohio State. There's some stories, and I'm still here another couple of days, so there's more stuff to gather. But the combine's a great opportunity. You see a lot of scouts and GMs, and unfortunately, as we mentioned before, the Knicks brass has not talked on the record yet, or do they plan to? But it's a great event, and the Knicks are here en masse, and some scouts are actually in watching Rokas Jokubaitis. Did a story on him, saying that he's probably going to stick in Barcelona one more season when the roster will have more openings.
Well, thanks so much for popping on, Mark. Really appreciate it. You definitely just named 4 prospects that are among our favorites that we talk about all the time. So we're super excited to read all those stories. I'm sure everybody listening is too. But thanks so much for popping on, and really appreciate you making some time for us, man.
All right. Thanks, Alan, Gavin. You guys do a great job, and enjoyed it.
Thanks. Have a good one, Mark.
All right. You too.
All right.